Hello and welcome to the Lupus LA podcast, Your Story, Our Fight. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, and thanks for tuning in for another episode. I want to start by thanking my sponsors because they really help us bring this show to life. Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals, Gemini Beauty, and we have a brand new sponsor this week, Emerge Business Management Services. They're a personal and professional CFO for clients across a wide spectrum of industries, and they handle all your financial affairs with integrity and transparency so their clients can have the peace of mind to focus on what's most important to them. So I'm really excited to have them on board. They handle all the finances for Lupus LA, and we really appreciate their support. And now let me tell you about our incredible guest today. We've been trying to get this interview on the books for a long time. In fact, this is being recorded while our guest is in Morocco. So please welcome Nzingha Stewart. Nzingha is an amazing and accomplished producer, writer, and director. You've seen her work in Inventing Anna and Maid and Little Fires Everywhere. And she's got an exciting new project I'm hoping she tells us a little bit about. And she's a lupus patient, of course, and for the last 10 years. So I'm excited to have Nzingha today, and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm super happy to be here.
So I know you've been a lupus patient for 10 years. So tell me, before you were diagnosed, sort of what you were doing. Where were you in your career? Where were you in the process? Personally, what was happening when you first started to have some symptoms?
I was coming on the tail end of being a music video director, which I'd done for a couple of years and loved it, and then was transitioning into film and television, doing a lot of writing, and just wasn't feeling 100% and like running all over the place, trying to figure out what was going on. Different doctors for different things. My brain didn't even tie them together. It was like, oh, now my hip hurts. Let me go see this doctor. Now I'm really tired. Let me go see my general practitioner. And different referrals for things and recommendations. And I remember when I knew I had to get serious about it was when my general practitioner said, you can just have a cup of coffee in the afternoon. It's okay. And I thought then, he profoundly doesn't understand what I'm saying. Like a cup of coffee, I'm pulling over on the side of the highway. Like, I don't think he knows. Right. I got to get serious because even in my career, what I want to do, I can't do feeling like this. Mm-hmm.
And were you having a lot of people tell you, oh, it's your job and you're directing music videos, so you're probably keeping these crazy hours, and that's what's, is that sort of the excuse that they were giving you?
Well, because I am a woman, I got a different thing. I was actually, one doctor said it was depression. And there were some who just didn't believe me. Another doctor said his daughter had the same thing, and when she got a boyfriend, it went away.
Wow.
But you're so desperate for an answer. Well, I can't go buy a boyfriend. So what can I do medicinally? And he put me on Prozac, and I said, I don't think this is depression. And he said all the physical things. And I was like, well, they sounds right. I know I don't feel sad. I just really, isn't there like a pill that's like caffeine but doesn't make me feel nauseous? Like, what can we do there? So yeah, I got a lot of weird proposals for things, and
that's amazing. It's so amazing to me after doing this show for so long, the number of people, especially women, who are told it's a mental health issue. It's the numbers are probably, it's got to be over 50% of people when they first are talking to somebody, there's at least one doctor is telling them you're depressed or you're and I think I'm hoping that that's, the more we talk about that, the more that can change. So when did it sort of become more apparent to the right doctor that this was something medical and not mental health?
Well, It never really occurred to him, which is shocking because my age group, early 30s, Black woman, not like I'm sort of the prime age group for
Right.
lupus.
Right.
But I went to a holistic practitioner who said, and I was going for like, is there like vitamin B and bee pollen and like tell me some natural things for fatigue? And she started asking questions about it. And she was like, I gotta say, fatigue like what you're describing is not natural and is not something you can fix with like bee pollen. And she said, you might have an iron deficiency. That could be something. And she was like, is there anything else going on in your body? Because fatigue like that usually comes with other things. And I was like, no, not that I can think of. And she was like, nothing else that hurts is wrong. And I was like, well, I got some bursitis and like my shoulders are bothering me and sometimes my ankles. And she was like, so joint pain. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And she started asking just other stuff. And I was like, yeah, that too. And then she was like, I think you need to get a battery of autoimmune tests right away and insist on it. Don't let your doctor talk you out of it. Be like, nope, this other person said I have to get it. And she said, get some thyroid tests too. And I went to both. I did hear, I'm so glad she said insist on it because he was like, I can look at you and tell you those aren't problems because lupus, you would have this scar, this rash. And luckily she made me insist. And the next day he called and was like, so you probably sit down so we can have a conversation. And I was like, oh no. And he said, you are testing very high in this lupus spectrum. And I was like, well, what's like the gray area? He's like, you're not in that. You need to see a rheumatologist right away. And that's how I found out. But it wasn't like he just came to it. And what I tell women now, I never say like you definitely have lupus because I don't know.
Right.
But I do say ask your doctor to tell you what else it could be and why it's not that. If he's saying it's not lupus, be like, why isn't it that? And if it's like you don't look like it, be like, I need a lupus test. Like,
yeah. No, I totally. So I asked this question a lot. Was there relief or fear, or both?
Both. I felt like, well, it's super scary because I don't know what that means. I don't know anyone with lupus. I don't know, am I going to die? Like, I didn't know what that meant. But I also felt like, okay, now we can do something about this because I knew I didn't feel right. And I felt like it was so hard to do the things that I love, especially work, feeling so tired all the time that like, and I had heard from one doctor, like I might need hip surgery. I was like, I'm in my early 30s. Like, don't need hip surgery. Like, so there was relief. And then there was more relief when I went and found out there's medication I can be taking. There's, there are things that can make me feel better and that I'm on the right path.
And when you started the right treatment or started your path to the right treatment, how long did it take for you to recognize that there was a difference, that you started to feel a little bit better?
It took a minute because I didn't have the right rheumatologist at first. And I think she just started putting me on Plaquenil. Like the course of treatment wasn't right for me. And so I was a little bummed. And then I was in Atlanta doing a job and just chugging Red Bulls. And my director of photography said like, hey, what's going on? Like, you shouldn't be, those aren't good for you. And I have lupus, I'm having a flare up and I'm just really fighting laying down on this concrete floor right now, going to sleep. And he was like, well, I have a rheumatologist who's amazing. And he's like the guy. And he put me on to Dr. Daniel Wallace, who right away was like, that should not be your course of treatment. You need to be put on steroids, put into remission. Then we can talk about maintenance, get you off steroids. Like, and it just then I started to feel better. And then when things really got bad, I knew what to ask for, what to say. I knew when my body was saying, like, this is a lot, lots going on here. And that took maybe like 2-3 months before I started feeling better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's an important point. I think there's an education period where you have to educate yourself about your body, and sort of once you have the tools, then you kind of have to learn the language, I think, of, okay, this is how I can express this to my doctor. Then they're going to give me the prednisone or the, which course of treatment. I always think that's it's something that I don't think anybody can teach you. It's really about trial and error, and then about trusting yourself. And I'm guessing that the experience you had in terms of the length of time it took to get diagnosed and all these doctors telling you the wrong thing is really hard to trust yourself to know, no, this, I got to tell the doctor about this, or this is nothing, or this is something.
Yeah. And I mean, I just kept thinking, it sounds silly now, but I'm glad this reasoning was in my head. As I kept thinking, like, there's no way Beyonce could feel like this and do what she does. Or there's no way Oprah Winfrey could feel like this and do what she does. It's not possible. Like, she couldn't. Right. And so I know this is left of healthy. And like, I gotta figure out what it is, because I work really long hours, and I know this stuff I'm taking isn't good for me, like, to try and stay awake. So just that, it sounded silly, but like, just like conviction, like, it's not possible to feel this way and operate at such a highly functional level, is what made me not give up.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to come back. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about what it's like to be a director in the crazy entertainment world that we both live in, and have lupus, and how you've been so successful. So we'll be right back with more from Nzingha Stewart.
Please visit our online store at lupusla.org. By purchasing Lupus LA products, you are directly supporting lupus patients and their families. For more information, visit lupusla.org.
Welcome back to the Your Story, Our Fight podcast from Lupus LA. We're talking to writer, director, producer Nzingha Stewart, and we were before the break we were starting to talk about work. So for those that are not in the entertainment industry, explain what it takes to direct a 1-hour episode of television, like a show like Made or Little Fires Everywhere. What's the hours? What does it take?
Well, it's a little different with the limited series because you're doing more than one. And so it's more complicated than if you're doing like an episode of a Scandal or a Grey's Anatomy, where you prep for 9 days, you shoot for 9 days, and then that's it. You edit a couple of days. With something like a limited series, which I guess people consider more like premium television, your prep days are longer, your prep time is longer, spread across more days, and your shoot time is spread across more days. But you are using a lot of mental energy, because in doing more than one episode at a time, but not shooting in order, you're always keeping track of like, what episode is that in again, and what comes after this again. And with lupus, sometimes comes brain fog, so that's fun. And there are days where I do lean heavily on our script supervisors. I have to prepare a little bit harder because I don't know when I'm going to have a bad day. And so I always do a shot list. I always have like a plan that I share with everybody in case I'm not so strong that day, that I can say, what did I say there again? And like, can I look at my shot list? Do you have a copy of it? Just to prepare, because you never know when it's going to be that day where you kind of have a brain fog or you're really exhausted and fatigued.
And what's a typical sort of, when you're shooting, how many hours? What time are you up? What time are you done?
They're long hours. When you're in prep, I usually try to be at the office by like 9:30 in the morning. I usually try to leave by 6. Sometimes it goes a little bit longer. Sometimes I can get out of there an hour earlier. In COVID times, I worked from home, which actually meant the hours were longer, because without sort of a cutoff time, you just lose track of time and go and go and go. when you are on set, technically you start at 7 a.m., you usually leave at 7 p.m. But for me, I'm up by like 4 to spend a couple hours just looking over my shot list, looking over my plans, what the day's work is. And then, when you get to the weekend, it's like, then I really do a lot more work, at least one of the 2 days. So you're working far from normal hours. Like your norm in film starts at 12 hours. Everything after 12 is your overtime.
Mm-hmm.
So you're working much longer hours than the average person.
And how did you reconcile when you were diagnosed and you realized, okay, this is now a chronic situation? How did you mentally handle that, where you recognized, how am I going to do a 16-hour day back to back to back to back?
I don't even know if I thought about it or it would freak me out. I think I just thought, I got to get treatment for this thing. And I was happy because I had been doing it that way, working back to back to back, drinking all manner of energy drinks, and it wasn't good. So I was like, okay, finally, I know something is wrong. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't depressed. It wasn't because I didn't have a boyfriend. And now what is the treatment plan for this? And I did do a lot of once I knew what it was, I did a lot of research on my own for just things that don't come in a prescription bottle. I know my body, and dry eyes is a real problem for me with lupus. I also have Sjogren's syndrome.
Me too.
So I sleep with a humidifier. I take a lot of omega-3 oils because that helps my eyes. There's things that I got the little plugs from the eye doctor and your
I
tear
did that
duct.
too. Yeah.
You gotta sort of look around and do research and do all the forums and things like this and just find out what are other people's management tools. I found out about magnesium and how much that helps, and turmeric, and vitamin B12 is something you're often deficient in. It's really helpful. I would read my labs and be like, that doesn't seem like I have enough of this. I think I should take an iron pill, or,
Did you, when you kept working, how public were you in the beginning with your producers or your fellow, your team, and how did that sort of transpire? Because I know there's a lot of people in this business who have lupus that don't tell anybody, and
if it comes up organically, I say it right away. If it doesn't, I don't like to bring it up because it starts off on a weird, I don't want them to think there's any reason for them to be concerned. And when I lead with that, so I should tell you guys I have lupus, and I don't like to do that. But if something's wrong, I will say, I have lupus. I'm having a rough day. I've given the script supervisor all my notes. I've given everybody everything, but just maybe be patient with me today because I'm just moving at a slower pace. I'll still get everything done. I've had for years. Don't worry about it. But I just don't want you to think I'm slacking off today.
Was there ever a time you felt like I'm not going to be able to, I'm going to have to change careers and give it all up?
No,
right,
that
good.
wasn't an option. I love it too much. What I did think was I have to change the way that I work. And so, for example, this job that I'm on, they wanted me to start a month earlier, but I just wrapped another job and I know my body. And I was like, I'm starting to feel really run down. And I know this can turn into a flare. I'm not going to give you guys the best of my work. I will understand if you want to go with somebody else, but I cannot start back to back like that. I need to take a month off and just rest and really do that. Don't kind of prep and, and sometimes now I have certain rules where people will try to have Sunday meetings and I will be like, I cannot do a Sunday meeting. I also, during prep time, I will not go anywhere in person on Fridays. And
Okay.
like if there's a meeting at the office, I won't be there. I can do it on Zoom, but I need a little bit more rest time for me to do the best work that you deserve.
I mean, I'm really impressed with the empowerment that you've had sort of, throughout the career, because that's a tough thing for a lot of people to, this business, I think, is it's a people pleasing business. And, because I find that too, you don't want to ever let them see the chink in the armor and give them any reason to say, oh, it didn't work out this time, but I'm so impressed with you in that respect, because I think that's a hard thing to do, but I also think that when you do it, people really respect it.
I also think that like the truth is really, I can't deliver great work when I'm just completely exhausted and when my body doesn't feel good. And I want to be known for great work, and then you're forgiven for anything. And so,
right.
Like if you're giving them good stuff, like they will forgive you for missing that meeting or this meeting. I've also really started to talk to my ADs about what meetings are necessary and what meetings do I not really need to be a part of. Because I think sometimes they just set meetings so they can check that off, and then you go and it's a total waste of time. And I'm like, you have to start looking for people who can support you in really being careful with your time, being conscientious of, it's not, well, then I can do this other meeting. It's like, no, then I can take a nap. And like, you know what I mean? Or then I have a minute to meal prep so that the food that I eat this week makes me feel good. Like and I talk to the people I work with about that is an important thing in my job as doing a shopping.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. I think it's great advice for everybody. So tell me, well, what are you working? What's in Morocco? Tell me, how is that experience? Because I'm assuming travel also changes the game for you.
I do lots of travel. So I'm here now making a feature film that is a big comedy, and it is, I'm still in a state of sort of shock and how surreal it was. I literally just got off a Zoom with Steven Spielberg and I'm still in a state of like, did that happen? And where I had to pitch the vision of the movie to him and just see what his thoughts were, if there's any advice, anything he thought could be sharper. It was a wonderful call, but it is like, what is my life? Like, I'm like a girl from Brooklyn. Like this is a very surreal.
So you went from a Zoom from Steven Spielberg to a Zoom with me. I don't know. I feel I totally feel not worthy, but now I feel connected to Steven Spielberg in some way. It's like,
amazing. Love it.
That's crazy.
But it's like those things happen, and you've got to be on, and you've got to be energized and feeling good, and then comes the hard part, which is set, which is like you try to, during these times, prepare your body as much as you can. And that for me means like yoga, it means meditation, it means like drinking healthy juices. It means really give your body every little bit of ammunition you can, because like when those 14, 16-hour days come, and they come for months, it's not like a week of shooting. It's when it's a film, I'll be filming from like October, November, December, January, 4 months of intense hours. And then on the weekends you shot list or you have meetings. Like
so tell me, because I know when you're on a set, and I think a lot of people maybe listening don't necessarily know this, but you're there for 14 hours, but you're really shooting for such small pieces, and there's so much waiting, and there's so much not downtime, because it's really not. There's lots going on, but you're not involved in every piece of that. And so what do you do during those times to make sure that you can supercharge for the rest of the day? Now that it's not Red Bulls, what's the...
Well, that's sort of the interesting thing. As the director, I don't have that downtime. The actors get it. Different crew members get it. When there's like, we're waiting for lighting, usually what that means is the producers come over and say, we want to talk about this next scene, what the tone is. The actor comes over and says, I have a couple questions about this next thing. Can I ask you? Production designer comes over. Like literally at the end of the day, if my husband asks me what I want for dinner, I'm like about to have a meltdown. Like, I don't care. Like, I can't answer one more question. Like,
right.
And it always, the only time they have for those questions are when we're lighting or we're in turnaround. So I still have to be on and available. There's no going back to my trailer. It's just every once in a while I'll say to the AD, I need 5 minutes.
Right.
I ever forget that 5 minutes to just sit still. What I have learned to start doing is getting my lunch early. This has become harder in COVID times because we can't take our masks off on set. When I can, I try to eat while we're like working still and then take my lunch to just take a nap. So that, or just sit and be still and meditate. And and that's sort of the only time that I get, but that time is important to me. Or I'll take that time to like shot list for the next day or go with friends for the next day. So I get an hour extra sleep. Got
it. Perfect. So, all right. So I'm going to wrap it up with a question that I like to ask a lot of people, but I think, what is your advice to a young up and coming filmmaker who may have a chronic illness or an autoimmune illness or think they have, and what's that advice if you were just starting out today, that you would give to somebody who wants to be in this business or a business like it with that kind of pressure and hours?
The first thing is, don't think of yourself as a victim. There are cheats and there are ways around it. And I think I used to think of myself as like, it's so much easier. I didn't have this and other people have this great advantage over me. And like it's just not true. Like, and it was something that sort of harmed me because it made me approach things with an attitude that at the end of the day, the attitude makes people not want to be around you and makes not people want to work with you. But when I started to just say, all right, well, I have this thing. I'm not going to quit this other thing that I love. What are my workarounds? How do I research tricks? And I did start going to homeopathic doctors. One doctor was Dr. Meredith Bull, who's amazing, who does labs and will say, well, you're vitamin B deficient, you're vitamin D deficient, you're iron deficient. Let's get these things together. Try this because of lupus causing you problems with GERD. Now you need to do IV infusions of vitamins. Like there's workarounds that can make you feel almost at base level of everyone else. Like go for those first and really like talk to I know this is very esoteric, and talk to your body. Be like, today I'm going to need a little extra help from you. And I promise you, I'm going to try to take care of you on the weekend. At the end of the day, I always thank my body. And so I can know today was a rough one. I so appreciate you for getting me through this day. Like those little bit of messages, like keep you in a positive place where sometimes you don't feel it at all, but you're at least a pleasant person to be around. Like you're not complaining or starting the day with like, this isn't fair. Like that doesn't help.
Yeah.
So that would be my first point of advice. And just know, like, there are people who do this every day. It can be done.
That's one of the best answers I've heard for that. Talking to your body, telling it, and the positive attitude to me, that has always been something, because I was diagnosed when I was 16, and that is always something that my parents instilled in me that I really tried to, I tried to just live my life with that positive attitude, because I agree with you. I don't think people want to be around you if you're miserable personality wise, not physically. I think that's really, really important advice.
That is super important. And it is, you have to say no. Your body can't handle doing everything. You have to say no. You have to say no sometimes to work and just trust more work will come if you're feeling tired and run down. You have to, if people ask you to come to a thing or go to a dinner or whatever, I don't give excuses anymore. So if I give an excuse, it will be, no, I have to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, because you do.
Yep.
Like, you can't do everything. You have to say no so your body can rest.
Fantastic. All right. Well, listen, Nzingha, I appreciate you doing this conversation, especially from the other side of the world. Wishing you terrific success, and let us know when we can tell the world what movie to go see, and we'll do that. And thank you so much for talking to us. On behalf of the entire team at Lupus LA, we thank you for joining the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Please tune in, spread the word, and come back for more inspiring lupus stories. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, wishing you good health, and to always remember, your story is our fight.